Welcome to the Jackson Rudolph podcast. I am your host, Jackson Rudolph, and today is episode 57 of the Jackson Rudolph podcast, brought to you by the one and only, the legendary Black Belt Magazine. And this weekend, Black Belt Magazine will be streaming along with US TV, Point Fighter Live, and so many other amazing platforms, including Century Martial Arts and more, Pro Point 4, with the goal of this being the most viewed point fighting event ever. And we have none other than the man himself, one of the men behind this incredible project. We have Josh Horwege on the show today. I am extremely excited and honored to have him on. So thank you very much for coming on the show, sir. And start by just telling this Black Belt Magazine audience a little bit about yourself and maybe how you got started in the martial arts, like so many of the people tuning in.
Yeah, well, first, Jackson, you're doing a phenomenal job with Black Belt Magazine and your podcast. I enjoy them, and you are doing a phenomenal job. So I'm excited to be on here. So I'm 41, but started karate when I was 4. I was one of those kids that would sneak downstairs and watch Kung Fu theater. You probably wouldn't know about that, but I would get in trouble for watching those little old Kung Fu flicks late at night. And my parents put me in a Taekwondo place because it was like a 2-3 week trial. And I did it for 2 weeks. I remember like the very first class I did, I remember loving it, but we also couldn't afford it. So fast forward 5 years later, Joe Corley at the time had these lead boxes for all you marketers out there. I have a place in my heart for those old lead boxes where you drop your name in. And if you're lucky enough, they'll call you. Little to know, they called everyone, right? So, but I went in there and I had my 2-3 weeks, and I just, once again, I feel like I'm always supposed to do karate. So 9 years old, started with Joe Cooley Karate, and just doing it nonstop ever since.
Very cool. And obviously a great lineage and background there, training under Joe Cooley Karate. A lot of our audience knows about how heavily involved he was in the PKA and making that successful with so many of the all-time great karate fighters that we talk about now, Bill Superfoot Wallace and Joe Louis and Benny Urquidez, and so many fighters that came from that field of the martial arts. And now we've seen the martial arts evolve into what is today sport karate's point fighting, and now something truly revolutionary in what Pro Point is doing. I want to talk a little bit, since we're talking so much about sport karate today and point fighting in general. Before you were a coach and an entrepreneur, a promoter, before you were all of these things, you were a competitor, right? So maybe just give us a little bit of a flashback to your days as a competitor, some great memories, and maybe brag a little bit about some things that maybe some wins you enjoyed.
Yeah. So growing up, once we didn't have much money, so I never even competed, maybe 5 or 6 times locally ever, up to when I was a black belt. So I remember fighting in the battle once when I was like 15, and I remember knowing who I was, and it was huge back then. I remember I ran through. I thought I won the whole thing because I ran through my division. I won everything. Like, oh no, now you go to the seeds. I'm like, seeds? What are seeds? I was fighting good. I ended up losing to a guy named, I think, Casper from Paul Mitchell back in the day. But I remember everyone was like, oh, they had no idea who I was because I never competed at all. So that was kind of my first stint, and I'm thinking, I could be pretty good at this. So, and then in my early teens, I started competing just a little bit. I was working for Joe Corley at the time, and the school owner was sponsoring me some. So I remember I would dabble a little bit. My first big one was probably Ocean State. And I remember I lost to, I think I beat a couple of good fighters. I was 18, lost to Reggie Perry, but it was really close. And then I started to get a little bit noticed at that time. And then I remember, I think fast forward, I fought him again at the Open that year and I beat him. So people realized, okay, I have what it takes. And that's kind of like my start, is just the studio promote me locally. And then I got picked up on pro rank with a few guys. I got to fight with Kodak and Frank Jones. And it was a fun time. It was a fun season. That was kind of the first real team I ever was on. We did well. We traveled just more locally, did Super Grands a few times, but as a team, we did well. And then whenever Trevor Nash left CJB, Mike called to pick me up because I think I beat Jason. That was my first big win in 2000. It was the Cactus Classics. I made it to the middleweight grands. Back in the day, that was like the overall grands, in the lightweight, the middleweight, and heavyweight grand. And I made to Jason Tanks, and I remember all my friends saying, he's going to kill you. He's going to kill you. He's so good. And I was like, where's the confidence? And, but I was only 20. So Jason, we're the same age. He was 20. So we were both young, and his leg was just crazy. But I was rooming with Joe Corley at the time, and he told me just to visualize the whole fight. So I laid in that bed and I closed my eyes. I just played the fight over and over in my head. This person never learned about visualization. Can't even say it well, but I could do it well. And then I remember I beat Jason. He did kick me to the trophy table though. So I think NASCA maybe moved trophy tables away from the stage at that point. But so I beat him once, and then I fought him in teams. I think we fought to a tie. I think I fought well. Maybe it was Dixieland at the time. But Mike picked me up, and I got to jump on CJB in my early 20s, and it was a blast. I mean, getting to fight with Damon and Jason, and then Tom Roberts, and so there's a lot of just great fighters in the team. So we had a blast that year. And unfortunately, it was the last year that CJB had their sponsorships. I was only on them for a short period of time, just one season. But I remember I also had Raymond in my division. So I remember I would beat Elias and beat Greg, and I would run into Raymond every single time. I think he beat me 4 or 5 times that year. So he definitely was. And for me personally, I know I could fight, but that was the first time I experienced the next level. I was like, okay, I still, in my old age, feel like I can hang with anybody or beat anybody, but he was the first person I fought that felt like, okay, there are people from different planets when it comes to doing this. And he definitely was one of them. But we had some big wins. I remember me, Damon, and Jason beat Mike P, Reggie, and Raymond in team fighting. And I think we won a ton of team fighting that year with CJB. So that was a really exciting year for me as a competitor. Then CJB lost their sponsorship. Then actually was a team dojo back then also. I got to fight with one of my good friends, Dustin Shavonic, and Angel Huerta was on our team for a while. Even though Kodak stayed with Pro Rank, he would fight with us all the time. We had some pretty big wins also. He beat Paul Mitchell a few times, me, Dustin, and Kodak. So we had just a lot of fun. So at that point, I remember I never won. After that first overall with Jason, I made it to Final Four a few times, lost to Jotty in the battle, made it to Final Four. But I'd be a lot of top competitors. I just kind of didn't break through, that top scale. So competed a lot. We did well. About 26, 27, decided to get married. I heard they're going down the same path. Congratulations. And decided to focus on my marriage and my faith and the business that I own because, it's hard starting a business at a young age. So I took a step back for 5 or 6 years from competing. And I actually think that's what helped me have some longevity in the sport, just because I took 4 or 5 years off and there was not much impact on my body. I was still teaching and fighting with my students, but I wasn't training. And what people don't understand, point karate is hard on your body. It is hard. I've done jiu-jitsu and kickboxing and boxing before, and but point karate is it's hard training. It really is. So my body just held up well. And then Alex called me in my early 30s, I think 33, and he asked me to go back to his team and fight. And I said, yes. I got off the phone and said, why did I say yes? I haven't fought in forever. And then I remember I only sparred 2 or 3 times, just drilled a lot. And then went to Gator Nationals maybe, and I fought great. I remember, we fought teams. So we made it to the finals in teams, and I won my division. I think I beat Nathan Thorne, beat Kodak, made it. Lost to Ross on stage, but it was a good fight. He definitely beat me, but it was a good fight. So I was like, maybe I still got this. So then I made a little run on Alex's team. I won my second overall against Kevin Walker, but we had a stacked tournament. Justin Ortiz was there, Tom Roberts was there, Ryan was there, Kodak. We had a lot of good fighters at that event. And so that was my second overall. I won. I think I was 36. I thought that was pretty cool because not many people in their mid to late 30s win it overall. So I was pretty pumped about that. And then had a few other good runs, made it to Final Four a few times for like the AKA Warrior Cup. But once again, we had some pretty big team wins. We beat some good teams when we were together. And so I truly love competing, but as a athlete, I definitely lacked confidence in myself. And if I would have had a different mindset back then, I probably could have been better. But I love it, man. I love competing. I still love fighting with the guys. And that's kind of like a fast forward journey of my career.
Absolutely. And just a little bit of context for our viewers, because I think you're being a bit humble. When you win multiple NASCA overall grand championships, one of them at the age of 36, that's incredibly impressive. And when you say that you were losing to guys like Ross Levine and Raymond Daniels, I think there's no shame in that whatsoever. We're talking about some of the all-time great, if not the all-time great point fighter in Raymond Daniels. In my opinion, one of the top 5 or top 10 point fighters of all time in Ross Levine. So absolutely no shame in losing to some of those guys. And congratulations on an incredible career. And some really cool historical context in there as well. You talk about like fighting through a division and then getting to fight the seeds. And it was like this in forms and weapons too. Back in the day, we used to have what was called an Elite 8, which made it so hard for someone that didn't have a seed to win, because you had to compete in an entire division against everybody unranked, while the top 4 seeds sat there and watched you do your forms once. And then if you placed in that top 4, then you got to go against the 4 seeds. So you had to do 2 great forms to qualify to compete against the seeds and then to actually try to beat them. So a lot of people, both point fighting and forms and weapons, don't realize how difficult it was back in kind of the early to mid 2000s to break through and get some of those wins regardless of your division. You also mentioned Pro Rank having a fighting team. A lot of the more modern sport karate competitors just know Pro Rank for their forms team with Marcel Jones and the sync form that Marcel and Kalman would do, among others. They also had a great team demo around 2007-ish, I want to say. So a lot of the more modern sport karate competitors only know about the forms and weapons team, but they had a great point fighting team a little bit before that as well. And then last, while I'm geeking out about historical context, last thing is talking about fighting for CJB, which I think is a very significant team in the history and development of point fighting, because it was one of those Mike Conroy coach teams, right? You have CJB and then Full Circle and then Alliance and K-Talk later on, and all of the influence that he's had throughout his career as a coach. And now getting to have an even greater influence on point fighting through Pro Point as well, which we're going to get to that. But for now, I want to go ahead and stay within kind of your competitive career, now not so much as a competitor, but then shifting over to being a coach and an executive of a team as you founded Team Dojo Elite along with Alex Reyes when you guys formed Team Dojo Elite Power. So just talk a little bit about that team and how everything came to be, and then brag on your current players a bit too, because you got some of the world's best on that squad.
We got some great guys. So whenever I went back with Alex and we teamed up, and Alex always knew I wanted to do my own team, and it was pretty neat because we had a great, when I stepped away from WKF to do what we're doing, he was cool with it. He understood it. That was always a plan. And we still maintained great friendships when I was doing TDE and he was doing WKF. We would go to tournaments. I remember my last term before a tournament ACL, I was fighting at Capital Classics and he was coaching me, and I was TDE and I was the only one there. The rest of our guys were out of, I think, in Guatemala maybe. And but he was coaching me, and we just hung out the whole time, like nothing had ever changed. So, but with TDE, I remember Devin, who's one of my good friends, and he works with us right now. And we've always talked about doing our own team, and we thought about doing just me, him, and Zach. We're like, let's just go with it. Let's have an underdog team. Let's have some fun. Let's go out there like a little studio team. And so at that time, Cam was coming down to do a seminar, and he heard what we were doing. And what's cool about Cam is I met Cam. I fought Cam. I beat Cam. I think he was like 9 years old fighting the adult division, so it really doesn't count. I'm telling you, he was, and honestly, I told him this. He hit me like 2 undercut round kicks and my chamber was high, and they didn't call it. He could have beat me based on that. But ever since then, our first time we fought, he would just talk to me about business. When all the other teenagers or young 20s were going out, doing their thing, he would just sit and talk business, and he got my number. He would call and talk, and what about this? What about this? Can you help me with this? I just loved his hustle and his focus. He wasn't distracted by that scene at all. He just wanted to be the best, in the world, and he wanted to be a successful businessman. So we had a good little friendship. Gerald would always have my back. There's plenty of videos. If I go back and watch, I realize he's always behind me yelling. And I think once I won a middleweight grand fighting, Obeda. And the tournament before that, I was beating Leo like 5-0, and Leo came back and beat me in the last second. I gave up a huge lead, and I remember Gerald looked at me and said, "Josh, basically, I forget exactly what he said, but he said, 'Not this time, you got this.'" And I remember it was overtime versus Obeda, and I think I landed a head kick. And so he just always had my back. It was just a friendship. And so I had a good relationship with Cam, and then Cam said, "I'm in." I'm like, "What do you mean you're in?" I'm like, "Shut up. You're on Paul Mitchell. You're not in." And he's like, "No, I'm in." I'm like, "All right." So he was being legit. He's like, "As long as my dad and I are together." I'm like, "Of course," So then we just end up teaming up from there. And it was awesome. It was rest in peace, Gerald. I miss him tremendously. We ended up being really good, fast friends. Come to find out, he did that with a lot of people. He was great about maintaining relationships, and I'm not the best at reaching out and checking on people, but he was, and he did that all the time. And so we had a great friendship, and the team was awesome. And then we feel like we were just missing a few ingredients, and Alex was kind of feeling the same way. And so we just decided to one Thanksgiving, just combine teams. And I think we put both those worlds together. In my opinion, I think we're the best fighting team in the nation. So.
Absolutely. And you certainly have a right to claim that with the track record that you guys have had. Obviously, Cam Dawson, arguably the best heavyweight fighter in the world, definitely one of the
Sorry, the best fighter. I don't think heavyweight, I think the best fighter in the world. So
absolutely, you can make that argument as well. And you know, I love Cam. I was teammates with Cam on Paul Mitchell, and the grace and professionalism that he handled his transition with was something that I have a lot of respect for Cam for. And then in addition, I'm going to shout out some of your other fighters as well. You got Ryan George, who's been having excellent performances for the better part of the last decade. I think originally from NBL, now doing more NASCAR stuff and everything with Team Dojo. Obviously, Zane Pedraza as well, one of the top lightweights in the world too. You guys have a stacked roster, and that's part of what has led you to so much success.
Craziest leg in the world. Obviously, Zach Winder, Devin Hopper, Mike Simmons. I mean, like we got a solid crew for sure.
Absolutely. And that solid group helped you secure one of the things that I believe is extremely important to the future of sport karate, which is corporate sponsorships outside of the martial arts industry. For a long time, Paul Mitchell has been the only team that has a sponsorship that doesn't have anything to do with martial arts. Back in the day, you had Team Budweiser, Team Pepsi, Trans World Oil. You had these outside entities sponsoring sport karate teams. For a while, Paul Mitchell was the only one left. Now Team Dojo Elite has the Taco Bell sponsorship. Talk about, number one, how that came to be. And then number two, how important is that for the development of our sport for years to come?
Yeah. So I wish I could say it was, my intelligence or hard work that landed the sponsorship, but it wasn't. But I do believe there's some key lessons you could take from it. So one of my mentors just trained this one guy karate years ago, and they maintained a great friendship the whole time. And my mentor was just consistent. He was above reproach, treated people the right way and did things for the right reasons. And this gentleman owns he's a franchisee, not a franchisor, a franchisee of Taco Bell. I think he has, a couple hundred locations, maybe more. And once again, it just was relationships. I ended up meeting him. I would go to this guy's corporate meetings. I was just, I love business in general. It excites me. And it's kind of like my new passion. And I just got to see how they handle these large meetings. I was just blown away. So we started training together and just developed a friendship. And just once again, just doing things for the right reason. We never asked for it. We never said, hey, will you do this? We just kept pouring into him, and he kept pouring into us, and we just grew as a friendship. And then he's the one who approached us on the sponsorship. But with that said, he also knows that we'll represent that brand well, because I know, as you know, on Paul Mitchell, we take it seriously what's on our chest or on our arm, and we never want to, defile the brand for any reason. So we're very particular about our code of conduct contract, what we do and how we act, in and around that tournament. So it really just was based on relationships. I think business is that way. And I believe everyone you need to know, you already know. I think if you just continue to foster those relationships around you, and I think there's a lot more opportunities out there for people they probably don't even realize.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think there's always opportunity. It's always just about doing the right thing, and those opportunities will come your way undoubtedly, as long as you continue to do what you're passionate about and do it in a way that other people will respect. I had no idea that they had actually reached out to you guys about the sponsorship. That's really cool. And it just shows how organic it can be when you love what you do and you work earnestly towards that goal. And then the name Team Dojo is what I want to get to next, because that, I believe, comes from the chain of martial arts schools that you own through the dojo schools, where several world champions are now instructors. You can see the logo behind you. I know that we do have a lot of school owners that tune into the show. So maybe just give a little bit of background about Team Dojo, and if there's any maybe competitors watching that wanted to see about getting into the business field and owning a school or instructing, how they can get in touch with you and maybe find those opportunities.
So one of my goals when it went back to putting on a team was not just to sponsor athletes, but also to give people a career path, because we know the sport as it is most of the time does not lead to financial success, and honestly, a lot of people invest a lot of their careers and a lot of their bodies into it, and there's not much to show in return. So my goal was to give them a financial path and a path to ownership, and just to not just grow them as athletes, but grow them as businessmen and as martial artists as in general. So that's why a lot of them relocate here, so we could train together. And then we just basically take them through business school. I don't think I'm not a college graduate. I don't think you have to spend, get out of college. If you have one, my wife has one, my kids are going to college, nothing against it, but I don't think you just spend $80,000, $90,000 and go in debt to get a college degree. I think there's other ways. You can choose different fields of professions and educate yourself and surround yourself with mentors and people who are seasons ahead of you. And so that's kind of my goal, is just to give back to the generations that's right behind me and just kind of help them find that way. So yeah, we're always hiring. We're always growing. I went and looked at a new location this morning. It's an awesome building. Once again, a friend he purchased this 250,000 square foot, basically shopping center, which is ridiculous. It used to be like a cotton mill and it's on a river, and he's redoing it. So it's all vintage. It's really cool area. So I went to go check that area out today. So, I love that side of it. So I'm not ever claiming to be a master marketer or the best business systems, but I just love business, and I love our students. And so that's kind of where I'm at professionally. I think we have 6 locations, looking to pop our 7th, and there's more dojos, but those are the ones that me and my business partner own.
That's awesome. Very cool. And that's a great way to give sport martial arts competitors a future within the sport. And that's one thing that I'm a huge advocate for, because, I was one of those people that leveraged my success in sport karate to set myself up for a career outside of the sport, because I recognized that there weren't many career paths within the sport, right? And I also have a passion for medicine, and that's why I'm going to medical school. If I didn't have a passion for medicine, I would be trying to find a way to make money in sport karate.
But don't you think that the discipline you learn from becoming a world champion can be transferred to other areas? I really do believe these guys that pour their heart, they are incredibly disciplined. If they could take that same work ethic and put it into med school or somewhere else, I think they'll be equally successful,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. But then back to what I was saying, I'm a huge advocate for anything that can help sport karate athletes find a way to make more money long-term. And that brings us to, within the competitive world as well, with Pro Point, some of the prize money that you guys are offering, the exposure that you guys are offering is really, really great for the sport. And in my opinion, the next big thing that the sport needs in order to get the exposure that we need, because the money and the sponsorships come from the exposure, is getting our sport on television, on large internet live streams and pay-per-views, things of that nature. And that is exactly what Pro Point is doing. So first, tell our audience, maybe they haven't heard about Pro Point before. I don't know how you wouldn't have heard of it yet, but maybe they haven't heard of Pro Point before, right? Just tell us what Pro Point is and how it came to be.
Yep. So I'll tell you what it is, but obviously it is, in our opinion, the professional level of point fighting. So I feel like every sport needs that next level. And for us, I felt like there's certain tournaments out there in our current circumstances I feel like are the next level, but I don't feel like athletes had a place to showcase their skills and really highlight not just them, but also it has to be spectator friendly. I think I've said this a few times in different podcasts. My wife's watched me fight for years now, and she still would get caught up on why'd they score that point? Wait, he fell down. Wait, he was first. She couldn't enjoy watching the fight because she was so confused on the point calling. And if we're all honest, we watch MMA. We have a feeling we know who won, but we don't know exactly what those judges are calling. Did he call the takedown? Did he escape first? Oh, was he more dominant? Was he more aggressive? Ooh, did you like that counter? Like, we don't know exactly know what they're calling, but we don't care. We just want to watch a good fight. So I think we had to create a product that it may not. We got a lot of kickback from fighters. Oh, you got to show the score. I'm like, it's because you're programmed to see the score. I'm programmed to see the score. I still want to see the score, but from spectators that don't know what's going on, it's much more viewer friendly. And so that's what it is. It's a professional point karate. That's all it is. You want to showcase our athletes for what they really are. There's enough knockout sports out there. We're not going for the knockout. We're trying to highlight our speed, our agility, our timing, our distancing. And I want other striking sports to watch point fighting, Pro Point, be like, I want to add that to my game. Just like they would watch a Naga tournament or a boxing tournament or K1, like I got to add leg kicks, or I got to add takedowns, or I got to add a better boxing game. I want them to be like, oh, I got to add that footwork. Oh, I got to add that blitz. Oh, I got to add that spin. I want them to watch our sport and see the value that it does have. And I wanted to bring credibility back to our sport. Our fighters can fight. And I think we've shown that a lot of them step in there and they're not just playing tag, like everyone says. These guys can fight. So that's kind of why we did it. Now, how it started, I was sitting with Kitana and Devin, and they wanted to run a tournament. And I personally have never wanted to run a tournament before. It just wasn't something I was passionate about. I've been approached plenty of times and just didn't feel the need to do it. So we were meeting together, trying to plan out their tournament, and we were kind of talking about some of the biggest issues are the quality of competition and judging. And so I said, what if we well, I was going to pull more regionally. What if we got in 8 great fighters and we start the tournament off with an 8-man tournament, and we'll pay for them to come, we'll sponsor them, and we'll do $1,000 overall. But our only request is that they judge. So we were to choose fighters that could judge too, because not all fighters can judge. So we were to kind of have those guys be the kick off the show, but then they can help judge. So we hopefully, knocked out 2 birds in 1 stone. We had quality competition that people wanted to watch, and then we had just good judging. And then from there, I was meeting with Ernest, who's one of my other mentors, and he always tries and challenges me to think bigger. And so I decided I wanted to make point fighting a professional sport. I remember I was watching ESPN2, and they had cornhole on there. And I was like, cornhole is on ESPN. And I watched it. And I watched it like 30 minutes. Do you know why? Because it was easy to follow. It was easy to follow. Not because it was super exciting. It was a little bit, but it was so easy to follow. And so I was like, you know what? We can do this, but we have to do it differently. And so that's kind of where it started from there. And actually started a couple years ago. We designed the logo, and we put a pause on it because we were going to start potentially franchise. We put a pause on that too with COVID. So, and then when this kicked back up, I actually helped Jesse Ray do one of his first shows. I was like, you know what? And Alex is like, hey, what about Pro Point? We should do that again. And I was like, you know what? And we were just going to do one show just for his dad's tournament. And then we are, taking a swing at it. So.
That's awesome. And you took the swing at it, and you certainly hit a hit, and we're working on making that a home run. Pro Point continues to get better and better with every promotion leading up into this promotion, which is going to be free for all viewers. We're going to talk about more about that here in just a moment. But I wanted to touch on, you mentioned the innovation. If you were going to do it, you had to do something new. A big part of that comes into judging and not knowing what the score is on every single clash. And I like how you talked about kind of the element of surprise of watching a fight and then the viewer not necessarily knowing exactly what the score is going to be. Yeah. And for those of you in our audience watching the podcast right now that watched the UFC, I think it was 259 just this past weekend with Israel Adesanya and Jan Blachowicz. In that fight, we saw most people on social media were thinking it's 2-2 going into the 5th. Lo and behold, the fight ends. 2 of the judges had that fight scored 4-1 in favor of the champion Blachowicz, right? And so it just goes to show how much more exciting and almost more suspenseful it can be when you're just watching the fight and you're not so worried about the scorecard and you leave that up to the judge. Go ahead.
You'll get caught up and be like, that's not a good point. And you won't watch the fight. I do it all the time. We do like, that's not fair. Why do you get that point? And you're missing the action because you're caught up in the point calling. So that's one of the biggest changes, obviously, is that right there. So you're exactly right, man. Exactly right. And I want it to be entertaining and suspenseful. And I want them to be in the edge of their seat. And I want them to have an opinion and guess who wins and guess who doesn't win. And so just like any other major fighting sport, I think there's a reason they do that. I think there's a reason most fighting sports don't say what the scores between rounds. We added that in. I think second thing is I think it keeps fighters fighting hard, right? We talk about a lot of 2-round NASCAR fights. If you have a big lead after round 1, you'll run the entire second round. And it's smart, but it's not spectator friendly, and it doesn't look like it's exciting martial arts. So I think we eliminated some of those, pitfalls in our sport. And we'll still compete in NASCAR and we'll still compete as much as we can. I still love that sport. I'm not knocking it. I just think there needs to be the next level of it.
Absolutely. And one of the ways that you've helped elevate it to that next level is a lot of innovations in the actual gameplay of point fighting, for lack of a better term. I know it's not a game, but I think everybody understands what I mean when I say that. First off, use a halo, a circular ring instead of the square, which changes the way the point fighters move a little bit. We see a little bit more comboing because fighters are trying to ensure that those judges see those points called. We also see penalty flags, things of that nature being thrown. So the visual spectacle of the point fight is very different from what you would typically see if you go to some open tournament, whether it's a ProMac or a NASCAR, an NBL or WACO or whatever. It's very different from what you would see in typical point fighting. So maybe just you as a fan, what is your favorite innovation that you think helps separate pro point just from a style of play, a fighting style point of view?
Yeah. And honestly, it is nothing. This necessarily wasn't even innovation. It's just going back to what we know works and just making sure that we spend time with the judges and make sure they don't call technique if they don't recoil it, right? Like just simple, like just bringing just clarity back to the point so they're cleaner and they're stronger. And I do think that allowing the judges to call their points whenever they want without having to send a ref call break, I think that makes the fighters, once again, Tony Young, I used to train with Tony. He gave me a lot of privates back in the day. Shout out, Mr. Young. He always said, Josh, throw your insurance. If you throw one technique, you give yourself one shot. And a lot of our sport is all about doing, or actually sacrificing your entire body to score a point, which I feel like is not the fighter's fault, because what gets rewarded gets repeated. If they're calling it, they're going to do it. Heck, I did it, you know. I'll sacrifice I'll fly through the air with a body punch trying to score because it was called. So I really do think just cleaning up the techniques, and then encouraging the fighters, like you said, to throw in combinations, and then adding sweeps back in there, man. I cannot wait to see someone really take advantage of that sweep game, where they blitz and they sweep, or they scoop and take someone down. I think it's going to add a lot of excitement to the fight. But I knew it's going to take some time. There's always a natural learning curve when you bring something new into the fighting world. You can't train it for 2 months and expect to do it. You know, it's going to take them getting some more reps in. So those are some things that that excite me about the fights when I watch them personally.
For sure. And I'm just going to go ahead and throw in my 2 cents. I love the sweeps. Like, to me, watching somebody get swept in a point fight is the equivalent of watching somebody get crossed over in a basketball game, right?
Yeah,
like you're still scoring points, but there's a little bit of insult to injury. Like, you got swept, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I love that. I think that that's something that point fighting needs more of, and the sweeps certainly added in there. And if those 8-point fighters that are participating this weekend are watching, and you want nice things to be said about you in the broadcast and in the podcast after the show, go ahead and hit those sweeps, and Jackson Rudolph will give you props. So if you're tuning in, I want to see those sweeps in there as well, and some head kicks. Head kicks are always great too. But anyway,
always welcome. You know, a sweep is what the Jason Romani fight was, a controversy fight on Pro Point 2, and I watched it back, and live I thought Romani had inched out a win, but when I watched it back as a judge, I thought Romani was taking off phenomenally. I told Romani, he's so fast, he was jamming his punches. So I couldn't see as clear. He was getting there, but I couldn't tell the technique. Then I had him winning 2-1 until Jason swept him. And that was a 2-point sweep. So I had in my card, Jason winning 3-2. That swept won him the fight. I keep telling our fighters, I think the average is like 3.6 points around, maybe 4 points-ish. Is what people are scoring. Gosh, a sweep is half of that. One move, you get half of that. One spin kick to the head, you get 75% of that. So just those high scoring techniques, I hope that people start working to their game, because I really do believe that's going to start to separate us in our style, and that's going to make it way more exciting. Whenever there's a spin kick and they even miss in UFC, they're like, oh, that was awesome. Like, it's really not that awesome. It's just a spin kick. Like, so for our guys, it's pretty basic. I think basic spin kicks are basic. You learn them at a green belt. So I can't wait for them to start working that part into their game a little bit more too.
Absolutely. And there's several fighters coming up on this card that have that in their arsenal when it comes to spin kicking, head kicking. We haven't seen as much of the sweeps because a lot of the point fighting rules don't allow it. So maybe some of the fighters will show that part of their game as well this weekend at Pro Point 4. I want to talk a little bit about Pro Point as an organization, because you have some key role players in the martial arts industry that are involved in this. We've already talked about legendary coach Mike Conroy, who's one of your executives. And then even higher up, some of the co-founders of Pro Point include Ernest the Cat Miller, professional wrestling legend, right? Who's got all kinds of connections within the entertainment and in the martial arts industry. You've got the social media mogul, Alex Reyes, probably somebody who's helped spread sport karate to more people than anyone ever has before with his work on social media and Point Fighter Live. So just talk a bit about how special it is to work with such a great team around you for Pro Point.
Yeah, what's cool is getting to do that, getting to do this with them. And any venture, any startup, it's not easy. It's stressful. It's exhausting. There's times you want to throw in the towel. There's times I want to do it for the rest of my life. So, but just getting to do this with people that I truly love and care about, and that I trust their intentions are pure, are just phenomenal, man. Alex and I fought Alex for the first time back in 2000. So we've known each other for 21 years. And Alex, what's great about him is I think he is a walking testament to how what growth looks like. We all know his reputation back in the day, but now he's just he's changing the martial arts world. I mean, he really is. 1.6 million followers on a point fighting page. That's mind blowing. If people don't think he's an influencer or a game changer, then they're sadly mistaken. But his heart is for the people. If you would have known some of the opportunities he gave people because of his page that no one even knows about, you'd be mind blowing. And he doesn't even brag about it. He does it for the right reason. So just with his ability to understand how to market social media wise has been a huge asset to us. And I don't think our exposure would be near what it is if it wasn't for him. And also his relationship for the fighters, man, they call and he answers. Like, he's something that they respond to. Maybe it's because of his clout, but also because of the opportunities, but they respond to him. So it's been awesome. Ernest, once again, he's was whooping up on me as an early teenager, and he's the one who saw that I kind of lacked confidence, and he always would speak confidence into me because I would sit there and bang with him, and he would bloody my lip, and I wouldn't stop. And so he's just been a positive. I considered it child abuse, but you know, it was worth it, I guess. But he's just been a great influence of mine. Just super positive guy, and he's on the sly, like really uh, business savvy, but he doesn't just brag about it. He'll plant these seeds and he'll work on. He's like, that's why I told you that time and that time. And so he's really grown me a lot professionally. And the way he carries himself has allowed us access to NBC and CBS. And right now we're currently in negotiations with one of those major networks. And we have a few things we're working on. On a side note, I feel if we land a major network and we get this on TV, just like American Ninja Warrior, American Idol, anything like that, and that's kind of the feel that I would personally like to have, is more of a family friendly. I feel like there's a lot of, I think this world needs unity, and I think our sport brings unity and diversity. So I think we could bring a lot, we could show good in the world and what we do as martial artists, but also put on a super exciting show that that's pretty suspenseful too, because people may get hit, they may get hurt, they may get cut. Obviously, they may get knocked out, even though we don't want it. But I think that adds to the entertainment value. But kids can watch the NBA All-Star game, and I want to shoot my three-pointer like Steph Curry, and they go on, they go practice, or they go to the local gym and sign up. We've never had that. We've never had that in our industry. I think not only will this change the game for point fighters, I think it'll change the game for studio owners. If we could get a product on a major network that they will support too, like people are gonna be, oh, I want to do that, and we're gonna create these stars, and they're gonna want to be like the stars, whether it's Bailey or Ryan or Jack or whoever it may be, and then they're to go Google karate, they're gonna find the closest place and go sign up. So I think besides Century and what they've done for the martial arts industry, I think this could be the biggest thing ever if we land that sponsorship. We just never want to support it, and just share it, like it, watch it, and just because once we can create that we have a huge audience, then we can attract the huge sponsors. Then we can really nail our negotiations. So it's kind of where we're at right now. I think this could change the industry. I really do, and I hope it does. But Ernest, it wouldn't be possible without Ernest. My father-in-law says it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And I've seen that to be true when it comes to our sponsorship from Taco Bell, and when it comes to this opportunity. And it's just surrounding yourself with good people and making yourself attractive to good people, and that good follows. So Ernest is key in this. And this is entertainment value. He's a mess, and you know it. And I'm like, Ernest, how do you get away with saying that? But he does. He gets away. He can say whatever he wants, and it's so cool. But I'm telling you, that guy doesn't party, he doesn't drink and smoke, doesn't do anything. Like he loves the Lord, but he's this big personality, but he balances it well. He's just a good dude. And then Mike, he was a coach at one of my first. I was on pro wing, but we didn't have a coach really. We're just kind of a bunch of kids running around fighting. But he's my first coach, and we've always maintained a friendship since then. He's given me advice, and just through the years, we stayed connected. And he once again was just a solid dude, and has a great reputation, and he has phenomenal ideas, and he's poured his heart into the sport. And in my opinion, has landed some great sponsorship, but hasn't really, received his fruit from his labor. So I'm hoping this will be something that he can look back on and hang his hat on, and it benefits him well. So that's our team, and I'm incredibly grateful for them. But I do want to give a shout out to Stephanie, Cam's fiance. Personally, this go around, she's been phenomenal. She's handled all the communications with the fighters and taken over our Instagram page, and just Stephanie, if you're watching this, she has made my life so much easier. Cam, you're a lucky man.
That is awesome. Well, you certainly have an excellent team around you, and that is undoubtedly part of what has helped Pro Point become as successful as it has become so far, and will continue to help it grow in the future. I want to pick up on one little thing you said there when talking about kind of the opportunities and comparing it to like the NBA All-Star game, and trying to get, the more students that see this, the more kids that see it, the more students will sign up for martial arts classes. In my eyes, when you watch a Pro Point card, that's the equivalent of watching like an NBA All-Star game, right? if you look at just any random open tournament that you go to where anybody can sign up, there's a good chance that when you go and you watch the men's point fighting division, you might see somebody at the caliber of a Cameron Dawson or an Avery Plowden or a Bailey Murphy or one of those higher echelon fighters fighting against somebody that doesn't really have any business fighting against one of those guys, right? It's the equivalent of when you turn on the TV and you see Lakers Pistons. I don't know if I'll watch this one, right? But when you watch a pro point card, that's like seeing the best every single time because it's an invitation only event. Obviously, you're signing the fighters to come and fight on the card. And so you're getting the best of the best. And you guys do an incredible job with the matchups as well of trying to kind of balance the talent among the bracket to create the best matchups, not just in the finals, but in the semifinals and in the quarterfinals as well. The matchups throughout are always really competitive. And speaking of that bracket format, what is on the horizon for Pro Point in terms of future promotions? Are we going to see more 8-man brackets, maybe even some 8-woman brackets? Are we going to see some female fights? Are we going to see more set matches? Just maybe give us a little teaser for what's on the horizon for Pro Point events in the future.
Our next event, we're actually going to hold off to the Battle of Atlanta. And that's going to be our next event. And we may sneak one more in there, but odds are we're really going to focus on our negotiations with the network right now and just really trying to focus on our current product. And we're to make the battle we're to blow the battle out. So we will 100% continue to do 8-man tournaments because I love them. But we're also going to start making some title fights. We've been trying to push for that, and we're to have some set fights. At the battle, we're going to have a women's fight. So the battle will definitely focus more on set fights. We're hoping to get some title fights in there. We just got to get a few things figured out first. So, but yeah, we're to have both. We're still going to focus on 8-man tournaments because I like the storytelling about it. But we'll do set fights also. And I think we'll kind of use these 8-man tournaments to create the ranking system, and to start making those set fights. So we're doing a little bit of both, but a women's card is 100% something we would love to do. And it's just finding enough win class, to do it. But I definitely, no matter what, we'll at least have at least 1 or 2 in this fight at the battle. We do our next card there for sure.
Very cool. Love to hear that. And just shortly after International Women's Day, it's always awesome to hear that the female fighters are going to be getting some love. I always love when we see that happen because we have so many super talented female fighters out there right now. Morgan Plowden, Gitana Everett, Elizabeth.
Yeah, she's one of the best fighters in the world. She really is. So, and she's exciting to watch. So you're exactly right.
Absolutely. So it's great to see them getting some additional exposure. And so you mentioned that the next Pro Point event is going to be at the Battle of Atlanta, most likely going to be at the Battle of Atlanta. You guys have also hosted some Pro Point divisions at tournaments like the North Georgia Open as well. So tell us a little bit about what goes on when you see Pro Point happening at another open sport karate tournament. How does all of that work out?
Yeah, one of our goals is just to make this accessible to everyone, so they can at least get practice with it. And so we're just starting to play with it, throw it in there a little bit, and we'll drop it into a few other tournaments here and there. We're not trying. We've got a lot of offers and requests. We're just not ready to pull the trigger on a lot of events yet. I still want to work on landing. My main focus is landing a sponsor and landing a network, big sponsor and a big network. And so that's where our focus is. And then once we get that going, I think it'll be so much easier to focus on adding to regional, because I think people are going to want to compete in it more. But we're still just working on, we're just being, when I work on building a business, I'm not afraid to try anything and see how it goes. And let's try this. I'm very experimental. And I really do feel like these local tournaments are going to be big for us eventually. But right now, our main focus is the national cards and just trying to create that spectacle of an event.
Absolutely. And I think that's extremely important for scouting as well, right? When you host some of these events, maybe you get a regional competitor that never had the resources to be able to travel to a big NASCA tournament and get seen, but they fight in a Pro Point division at one of these regional events, maybe a Pro Mac event. They fight in one of these Pro Point divisions, and all of a sudden everybody's like, hey, we need to get this guy in front of people because this guy's got a chance to win this whole thing, right? So I think that's an incredible opportunity. And, your tunnel vision and your focus on your goal of securing that sponsor and making this a big deal, I think it's part of what's made you successful so far and what will continue to help Pro Point in the future. But now let's lighten things up a little bit. Let's have a little bit of fun with the next one. So we've got 3 Pro Point champions right now in Bailey Murphy, Jack Felton, and Christian Rivas. all world class, all are great matchups for each other to compete for some type of a pro point title, and some big stakes on the line. Jack Felton is Black Belt's 2020 Competitor of the Year, inducted into the Hall of Fame. Bailey Murphy is I believe he's got the champion ranking for the lightweights because he won the 2019 US Open. So Bailey Murphy has that champion rank right now. So that could be up for grabs next time Bailey fights in Pro Point, which has ISKA sanctioning as well. And Black Belt Magazine is obviously going to support that, given the fact that we support all of the major sport karate leagues with the Black Belt Magazine official rankings. So now my question to you is, just for fun, maybe even some fighters that we haven't seen in Pro Point yet, what's a couple of fantasy Pro Point matchups that, just because of the fighting styles, you'd love to see those two fighters go at it?
Yeah, man, I would really love to see like a Robbie Lavoie and a Blake Spence. I think that'd be an exciting fight. I like, Blake's really working on his game. He had a really cool kickboxing match, amateur fight. Blake, shout outs to your win. I'm a huge fan of Robbie, and Robbie has been just great to Pro Point, and we chat often. I'd love to see Robbie and Blake, or Robbie and someone else go, because I think he brings excitement all the time. But I would love to see him fight someone in his weight class, this type of fighting, 20, 30 pounds is a lot. So he gave up a lot on that last card, first card he fought. So I'd love to see him get to fight someone in his own weight class. Obviously Jack and Bailey is something that we're still trying to do, and we will try to do. And our goal is to get through this card and then kind of see what's next. But the next thing is too, we want to do titles, but I want to make sure I can pay these guys what they deserve to be paid. So we're still trying to negotiate these deals so we can make sure we can treat them like the professional athletes that they deserve. So, and I'd love to see, on this next card, I would love to see Ryan and Leo go at it. I think that'd be an exciting fight. They fought before. I think that's going to be a really fun one. On this card, Ryan and Brandon, I think is going to be an exciting fight. So there's a lot of fights on that card. I think it's one of my favorite cards to date. So, but man, if we could get Ross in there, I would love to see Ross. And Ross and I've talked about it a few times, and it's not going to happen. But I'd love to see Ross get out there and just get back in that point game. I think he'd have fun with this. And let me see who else has. Let me see. I'm going to ponder more of them. What about you? What are some that you like? And I'll kind of rack my brain.
I mean, the matchup that I always love to see, and it's criminal that we don't get to see this matchup more often. And I hate watching the matchup, and I love watching the matchup at the same time, because I love both these guys as humans. So I hate watching them fight.
Avery and Cameron.
But you got it. You pulled the words right out of my mouth. I want to see Avery and Cam go at it again so bad. In my opinion, it's pretty much undisputed. I think everyone agrees those are the two best heavyweight point fighters in the world right now. And their styles are so different. And what I love most, and as everybody that watches this podcast knows, I'm a complete nerd about the history of sport karate. Avery and Cam both have so much old school in them, and it's so different. Obviously, with Avery, you see shades of his dad, Richard Clouden, in there. With Cam, I see a lot of like that Terry Kramer style back fist. You see a lot of Cam's dad, Gerald, in his game as well. So you see so much old school in them, but they've got the new school pace as well. And I could go on and on and on about how much I would love to see that fight. I've got no idea who I'd want to win, because Avery and Cam, you guys are watching. You know I love the both of you. I hate cheering for you guys, because when you guys go against each other, it sucks because I can't cheer for anybody. But that's the matchup that I would love to see. And seeing guys at that weight, that advanced weight class, fighting in Pro Point with the Pro Point style would be really interesting. Reactions to that?
I'm a fan of Avery. I've gotten to fight him 3-4 times. He's beat me every time. We've had some good battles. I think he's phenomenal. I do think he's one of the best in the world. I just don't think anyone can handle Cam in this type of fighting. I don't. I think the combinations, the sweeps, the full game. I think whoever. That's why I have him in the heavyweight card. After watching the first round, I was like, I can't put Cam in this. I mean, I can't put him in this. I got to figure out a little bit more before I put Cam in this. Because he just breathes and people fall down. So I bet it'd be a great fight. I mean, Avery is he wouldn't back down from anybody, and he's a strong dude. And I know he can not just point fight. I know he can fight. And but obviously Cam's my world. In my mind, Cam's a man, And so I think he'll be anybody you put in front of him in this environment. So. But that would be a phenomenal fight to watch. That's for sure. Oh,
yeah, it would be. And you guys know I'm going to stay neutral on this topic. But maybe in the future, we got to get Richard Clouden on the show and see what Richard Clouden's got to say about how that matchup might go too. But anyway, I digress. So now I want to get a little bit more future focused, right? So Pro Point, it's a baby right now. It's a new promotion. It's got a lot of potential. It's got a lot of great people behind it, yourself included. Where do you see Pro Point 5 years from now?
In a perfect world scenario, we are like as big as like a Ninja Warrior type thing, where kids are just they're dying to do it. They're motivated by it, and once again, just like I believe in our industry, we really I think we change kids' lives for the better. You know, we're trying to build stronger kids, and I really do feel like if we can get this product on air, and 5 years from now, I see us on a major network, and I see us filling up stands and stadiums and fights and venues, just like any other fighting sport, but almost like maybe like a wrestling type feel where all these kids can't wait to come watch their favorite fighters fight. So I see us big. I do. I really believe it. I think the size of your prayers reflect the size of your God. I've been praying big on this, and I believe big things are to come. So networks, filling up stadiums, that's kind of where I see it 5 years from now.
That would be absolutely awesome. And we talk about kids looking up to some of the fighters. Guys, if you want to find out whether you're young, old, or somewhere in between, if you want to find out who's fighting on this card, go ahead, head on over to Pro Point's Facebook page. Black Belt Magazine will be promoting it as well. So stay tuned for more content coming from us, as well as announcements about fight card updates and the streaming of the actual show. You guys will be able to find that right here on the Black Belt Magazine Facebook page, as well as on us.tv. We definitely recommend that you guys support them as well, because they're the main streaming platform that's going to be promoting Pro Point. But we talk about these people looking up to the fighters, and to me, that's what makes a sport, is when you follow these characters that you fall in love with, right? So like me, I'm a basketball fan, I'm a Celtics fan, but really, as much as I like the Celtics, I enjoy seeing Jaylen Brown be successful. I enjoy watching Jason Tatum be successful as they're young athletes and trying to make careers for themselves. They were both in the All-Star game, by the way, for you basketball fans. The Celtics representing there.
What happened in the three-point contest with them?
We won't talk about that. Tatum was in the finals, you know. But anyway, so that's one great thing that I love about Pro Point, is that we put these fighters on display and we show their personalities and we show their character through the interviews and through some of the bonus coverage. I'll go ahead and say it right now. Whoever wins Pro Point is going to be the interview for the next episode of the Jackson Rudolph podcast. So go ahead and be tuning in for that. Whoever wins Pro Point will be on the show next week. So be looking for that. And that's the thing, building up these fighters, showing their character, and that's what's going to make the fans fall in love with them. So Josh, kind of last thing here, other than the fact that it's free and there's absolutely no reason not to, why else should people tune in on Friday night and check out Pro Point?
Once again, I think I already said it, but I'll say it again. We have the opportunity to change our industry as a whole, not just our sport. So the more it's viewed, the more it's shared, the more it's liked, the more comments that are on there, the more likely we are to be able to land those huge sponsors that are going to help us with continuing to negotiate with these networks. So just get eyeballs on the screen, share it, like it, comment on it. And I think as a whole, we could really push this to the next level, which I think will benefit everybody, not just the fighter. So just do your part, tune in and help.
That is awesome. Couldn't agree more. Josh, thank you so much for your time. I can't wait for this weekend. For those of you that don't know, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be at Pro Point 4. I cannot wait to see how these fights turn out. I can't wait to be there and for everything that's going to be going on. Hint, hint, I might have some increased roles that you guys might need to be tuning into for Pro Point. So stay tuned for that. We will see what happens there. But anyway, I cannot wait for this event. Everybody tuning into this podcast, I definitely encourage Friday night, go check it out. It's free. You've got no reason not to. Put it on while you're making dinner. Put it on while you chill out. Check out Pro Point and you won't regret it, I promise. Once again, Josh, thank you so much for your time. Any last words before we head out of here?
No, Jackson, thank you. And I'll see you in a couple of days.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody for tuning in. Thank you as well for Black Belt Magazine for sponsoring the Jackson Rudolph podcast. This has been episode 57, and I'll see you guys next time.
Peace.